Even though I'm actually super tired, I'm always up for a headphone review. So let's talk about the Sennheiser HD660S for a minute. And whenever I say a minute, it does not mean an actual minute. And I actually don't have too much to say about them, which won't stop me to talk a lot about them, because that's two different things for me. Because I had them for about 4 weeks now, which I have to say is still not quite enough to make up what I really think about them. Because there is one question that I had from the start. The Sennheiser HD600 and the 650 are legends for a lot of good reasons. The question for me was, will the 660S be able to achieve the same status? If you ask me personally, I think yes, they deserve it. But I'm just not quite sure if they will get it, because times have changed. Because the 600 and 650s were released like 20 years ago, and things were very different back then. Now everything got way tighter, the competition is way stronger, and that's why I'm also gonna make a comparison maybe to tomorrow with the 600, 650, 660S, Odyssey LCD2, Beyerdynamic Amaron Home, and the Monoprice M1060, because I think that will be a very interesting thing to talk about. Today I wanna mostly focus on the 660S, obviously, and the 600 and 650, how they compare, but not too much in depth. That's up for the comparison. But this is a headphone that actually already dropped in price noticeably, because $500 official price, also 500 euros in Germany, it's already down to 420. Value has definitely improved, and today, which won't help anyone by the time you see this review, I've seen them for 330 on Amazon Italia, or Italy, Italia, it's wrong. So, wow, that's an amazing price, and I would have really wished for this being a unit to keep. But Sennheiser got all the review units out to the big outlets who will use it once and never again. I would have used this as a reference point all the time, like I did with the 600s back when I had the chance to decide between one or the other. Back then, I just chose the 600s over the 650s. If I would have changed my mind or not by now, that's up for a little bit later. Now, let's get into what we actually get with the 600s, 660s obviously. Let's put the others a little bit out of the way. So you get the headphone, you get the normal cable, and of course you can replace the cables. This is still a proprietary thing as far as I know, not maybe the first choice for everyone. The cable is very long, 3 meters, and it ends with a 1/4 inch actually. And if you want to use 3.5, you have to use this clunky adapter. But I guess this just shows that these want to be used at home with a decent amp. But what you also get actually this time is a balanced cable, which I have not personally used. I don't have something to use that with, not yet, but I'm gonna get there soon. So that's it. Let's put this out of the way. We can actually take this a little bit closer, because this is something that I just have to include. Design-wise, as you can see, they obviously all look very, very similar. Which is a good and maybe not a good of a thing, because yes, you all know the term, don't fix what's not broken. But I actually am not sure if the design was perfect, because I actually think they went the other way. They broke something that was working. But that's just mostly due to the pads, which I will get into later. Because design looks nice, obviously it's open back. They have a nice stepping in here between. I use like 7, which is quite long apart, because for some reason these have to be opened very much for my head. Design wise, it's obviously closer to the 600s compared to the 650s than compared to the 600s, which have a little bit of a different headband, even though that doesn't make so much of a difference. But I don't think I have to get that much into that. You all know that they don't rotate, but they swivel much enough. One thing that I love about Sennheiser, and I'm not even quite sure if you can see this because the light, at least on my monitor, looks off. This is easily big enough. It's deep enough. All good. But I don't like these pads. This is, of all the free ones, by far the most uncomfortable ones. Now, of course, you might say you've used these other ones a lot more and it just wore off. The thing is, this is not my unit. I could keep the 600s. But I actually did not use them too much. And back when I had both of them, I guess this could actually still be the same review unit that I got 2 years ago. I did not use these too much. Why, I will get into a little bit later. But they were pretty similar in terms of comfort. But there is one thing about the 660s which is just different, because here you don't have a hard lip. Yes, it's noticeable, but it's not that hard. And on the 650s, it's almost not there. So some say the pads are exactly the same. I would definitely disagree. I don't even think these two are the same, but this is definitely different, because this outer rim, this part here, is just noticeably harder. And when I put these on, my general feel of comfort is amazing fit. I don't have any headphones that fit more tight on a right level with good clamping force. Yes, it will be too hard, especially the first week when I had them, before I did this for quite a long time and gave them some stretch. I almost thought like I would be in a clamp and completely someone wanted to just push my head together. It got better over the 4 weeks that I had them. It definitely got better, but the ear pads are just too hard, and I know they will get softer, but I think the only way for me to get them really comfortable would be to replace them with 600 pads. I don't think they are the same. They feel very different. Yes, generally same in terms of the squish, but these feel so much more comfortable. And if I would have to choose one of all these for the comfort, the 600s definitely win for me. Because if I put on the 600s and the 650s, similar to the 650s, to the 600s, and sorry for mixing up those names so many. These just feel way too hard. So I think you need to listen to them a long time until they actually get comfortable. Now, isolation, not really much. I hear myself just as I wouldn't have them on, which is due to the open back and the velour just letting a lot of noise through. Obviously, leakage is quite big, but here's the thing. If I would put these on, comfort, yeah, especially the fit. But here's the big difference, and this is a little bit of a spoiler for the comparison. If I use something like the Odyssey LTD2C, this, even though it's like 200 grams heavier, perfection. Heavy, but comfort perfection. If I could get the comfort of the LTD2C with the sound of this 660S, wow, that would be amazing. Before I'm going into the sound, let's actually talk about how easy they are to drive. Actually easier, because the 600 and 650, I got it right this time, have 300 ohms. Now I messed up that. And these have 150, so they are noticeably easier to drive. If I just see it in terms of percentages, what I see on my amp, I would say at least 10% of a difference. So that's noticeable. Will it make a difference? I don't think so, because if you use any of these, you will need a good amp anyways. I've tried it though with an MP3 player, with a good one. I could drive it easily enough, and I could drive the 600s and 650s with them, also the Beyerdynamic Amaran and so on. So it was powerful enough, but they are easier to drive, in case that's important. The better the amp is, the better they will work out, because the 600 series is known to scale very well. Because when I've changed from something lesser to something better in terms of powering them, they definitely improved. Now let's just get to the sound. I will make it actually very direct when it comes to which one I prefer the most. 660S all the way. And this is something that is a very personal thing, because I know a lot of people will actually disagree with me. Because these are not nearly as neutral, not quite as natural, and just not nearly as flat as something like the 600s. So everyone who likes the signature of the 600s, stick with them. But in case you like what the 650s did, which is what some people love and some people don't love, because I got so many comments in my comparison back then when I made it. People told me, oh, it's nice, you got the 600s, that's what I like more from metal. And some said that's just ludicrous, the 650s are better. It really comes down to personal preference. Yes, the 600s are definitely the most neutral, the most flat ones. The 650 add the bass to that, take a little bit off with the highs, are, I would say, a little bit better for long-term listening. And that's actually one thing that I want to get into for the 600s. I personally haven't used them all that much for one main reason. My preference in terms of sound has changed a little bit, because for some specific genres, these are still pretty much the best you can get. the resolution that you get, the neutrality, the amazing mids, the somehow slightly shouty or forward mids, the vocals are so nice. And that is what back then led me to get these over the 650s, because the 650s back then had the nicer bass. I liked that, but it somehow felt a little bit too much if you want something very neutral, which was back then the thing that I loved. But they didn't have quite the forward pushing mids, which is something that I wanted to. But now, especially if you listen to anything that needs a lot of bass, like electronic music or some certain kinds of metal music where you want bass, this is where I would say these are lackluster. I miss the bass. They feel a little bit too thin on that end, but it's the highs that actually somehow, even though I've heard actually headphones that have more piercing highs, sharper highs, higher highs, these feel oddly uncomfortable after a while. So just to get that, this is complaining on a crazy high level and with someone that just changed his preference over time. They still, especially for certain things, do an incredible great job, and that's why I get why they are legends and I get why they are classics. The same goes for the 650s, because people who like these want a little bit more bass. They are okay with something a little bit less neutral, something with a little less sparkle in the highs to get a great experience, and you will get that. And I know, for example, DMS3 loves the 650s, some like the 600s. Now, even though I think a few things are lackluster on the 600s, I would still choose them over, because when I got these for the comparison back again, I thought maybe I should have chosen the 650s, but then I listened to them over and over again and I thought, no, still, the mids are still a little bit too kind of muffled for me, still a little bit too much in the background. I just don't like that. Of course, the soundstage on either one isn't big. The 600 series is known for a quite small soundstage for open back. Now let's get actually back to these. What do these better than the 650s and the 600s? Well, in my opinion, everything, if you are into that thing, because the soundstage got a little bit wider, but it got so much more mature. It feels so much more polished. It just feels right by now. It's still not the widest one, but I don't like a too big soundstage, because something like the M1060s, I think unmodded are too big. But without the foam, for example, I think it's actually too small. So that's something that I have to still figure out. And my review isn't out yet because I've taken my time. I've had them for way more than 3 months now. These, they deliver the nicest bass of all of them, because the bass is actually a little bit less compared to the 650s, but it feels more structured. There is more resolution in it, a little bit more detailed. It just feels a little bit tighter. I just like that you get kind of more punch compared to the 600s, not too much compared to the 650s, but it feels just balanced right. And back when I reviewed those two and compared them, I actually said I wish for something just in between. I want the bass of the 650s and I want the slightly less harsh highs of the 650s, but I want the whole mid-range and the kind of general sound signature of the 600s. And someone back then, when these weren't even a thing, told me that the successor will be that, and I totally have to agree, these are that, because now everything seems right. The mids are still a little bit more forward pushing, which is something that I like compared to the band. There is a nice distinction between the vocals and the band, but it's not getting out of hand or anything like that. The highs are still super clear, super detailed, great resolution with a nice bump in the vocal segment where just voices sound so amazing. So for everyone who's listening to music with a lot of vocals or classic music or everything, it still does that superb, yes, less neutral, and this is generally a thing. These don't try to be as neutral anymore. They are trying to be more of a soothing listening experience, but still with the resolution, with all the details that you got with the 600 series in the past. So they kind of nailed it, absolutely. I have to say the bass is super nice, tight, punchy, ever so slightly on the warmer side, ever so slightly. But in general, I would say they aren't dark, neither dark nor bright. They are neither cold nor really warm. They did a very nice balance job. That's something that I like. If I would have to choose, I would go for then warmer, if not neutral. And if I would have to go for brighter or darker, I would actually choose brighter in most situations. But with this one, I don't have to choose. This is pretty much just about that. It's not flat. It's not that. but it's great. I personally just like them so much more than the 650s because they fixed what I didn't like on the 650s. So I think the 660S is someone who wants to kind of slightly have an upgrade over the 650s, or maybe what he didn't like so much about the 650s. But it's not so much of an upgrade for everyone who likes the 600s, because it doesn't really take the genes of the 600s. It's after all a 700 driver, and it just gets in a little bit of a different way. Neutrality, the 600 is still the way to go for. This is just for someone like me who just likes to listen to music but doesn't want to lose the details or something like that. What I don't want to do is actually to pick every little note. I don't want to hear exactly everything else and having something super neutral, something super flat, just as it is. I want to enjoy music after all. And that's what they nailed. Now, I'm not quite so sure if they are specialists like the 600s were, and that's why they won't be quite the neutral thing to get, the flat thing to get for someone who wants that, and that's why they won't be a legend in that regard. Now, I think they're easily able, if the 650s were legends already, or became legends and still are, and classics, I definitely think these deserve to be the same, because they are just the best out of two worlds from the 650s and 600s. They took whatever they had, they took the best parts out of it. And listening to music on these is absolutely amazing, because yes, I, for example, listened to the LTD2C and I really thought about buying them. But whenever I switch from those that are super dark to something like this, you just think that everything is balanced out so crazy. And I'm not even going to talk about if the value is good. $500, absolutely worth it with 420 right now, at least in terms of euros. Absolutely, yes, you pay a little bit more than some people might want to buy. But the 600, 650S at around 300 are already kind of like everyone's mid-range or mid-end game. And I totally get that, because there are so many higher-end headphones that just do things a little bit different. Maybe higher-end in some things. But this is a headphone where you pay so much less and you get so close to these. Because that's why I said it. If I could get the comfort that I think is unbelievable on the LTD2C with the sound of these, which just is a little bit more what I prefer, because I love what the LTD2C do, but this is perfect all-rounder. There is no kind of genre that doesn't work with these. It's a little bit of a different thing on the 650s and 600s, because the 600s, amazing for ballads, instrumentals, classic music, vocal things, and just everything where you need neutrality, where you want details, where you don't want things to be pushed over too much in terms of bass or anything like that. That's where the 600s are there. The 650s are for everyone who wants a little bit more something impressive, but not getting too out of hand, and they are still very accurate after all, even though not quite as natural. But you can kind of hear it, even though I still, despite the flaws or the issues that I have with the 600s, prefer these. This is the sweet spot. This is what I've been looking for. And like I said, the only thing is the comfort. That's just something that I would have to get used to way more. Maybe because you can definitely take off the pads, and maybe I would just replace them with my 600 pads, which could have an impact on the sound. I don't think it would be an issue, because after all, everything is interchangeable, and everything that you can get in terms of spare parts for the older ones you can use on these, which is absolutely nice. In terms of build quality, I actually didn't even talk that much about it. I think they hold up well. There are still a lot of people complaining about some things, but in terms of design, I think I prefer this the most, because they are very subtle now. Just black, not some weird marble look like on these, if you can even see that, or what the 650 did a nice job with the gray as well. These just look the most elegant, the most actually, these you look good everywhere. Now if you use something like the LCD, this is definitely something you have to use at home. I just don't want to take these off once I have them on my head, but yeah, that's another story. So yeah, I knew this video would get longer, even though I don't think I have actually explained them too well, because it's not about measurements, graphs, or anything like that. It's about the experience at the end of the day, which is at least for me the most important part, because comfort, like I said, that's something that I have to get used to, but the fit is amazing. They sit just right, but I'm usually something that's very a little bit like overly sensitive with earphones and so on, but sound. If you like it still overly, or let's say mostly neutral, I don't think these go in one or the other direction too much, because they are not overemphasizing the bass, which is a super nice bass, very detailed, kind of punchy, dry, but also warm at the same time. So pretty much just as good as you can calibrate or set up a bass. The mids, fantastic job, like expected. The highs, noticeably less sharp than on the 600s, do a so much more soothing job. You can use these for so much longer than you could with any of the other ones without finding any flaws. Because the 650s I could have used a while, and then at some point I would have heard the mids getting a little bit weird, the highs being a little bit muffled, and the bass sometimes being a little bit too much. On the 600s, after a while, I would notice it being a little bit thin and all that. You can listen to these as much as you want to, you won't find any flaws. And I know on Twitter actually said I have these and they do a lot of things right, but they don't do anything particularly outstanding. After a while, I think that is what makes them what they are. They do everything well without any flaws, but what they do well, they maybe don't do quite as impressive or outstanding like some do these smaller parts, but everything on a crazy high level. So this is actually the problem. If you buy these as your very first higher end or better headphone, it will be very hard for a long time actually to find something noticeably better, because yes, you can jump up to €1,000 or jump around, and you will usually just do side steps. You will just find different experiences, maybe more bass, maybe something more neutral, maybe something more impressive, maybe something that is more comfortable, but you won't find anything that is really generally much better. You will, if that's not quite the thing for you. But they did a so nice job of getting this to a level in terms of balance that I think no one will be able to use these and not be happy unless he's into Beats or into extremely Sony extra bass headphones. If you want something that is, let's say, audiophile, at least kind of natural and all that, and you just like that a little bit, I don't think you will not be blown away by these. But you will not be blown away at the first second, because at first moment you notice that they do everything right, but you think, wait, I expected something impressive. No. That's not necessary. It's about the balance, because you will listen to them and nothing will bother you. Everything is so well done. Why am I smiling? Well, because I think I repeated myself for like 15 minutes getting over the same thing. Yes, they are amazing. Yes, I can easily recommend them. Will I get them for myself? I am not quite sure, because I don't really need them. I would have loved if I could have kept them, and then I would have definitely had them a little bit more in use than some of the bigger reviewers that won't really make much comparisons with them. But yeah, I get that, because this video won't get nearly the views or attention or the influence that the bigger outlets will get here in Germany. But yeah, it kind of has to become a legend at some point. I kind of can't believe it won't. So let's just leave it at that. Until next time, bye.